They called him a thug the moment he stepped on stage. The tattoos on his neck, the scars on his hands. People saw danger, not the man behind them. Cameras zoomed in, social media lit up with hate, and whispers filled the crowd. But when tragedy struck before millions watching live, everything changed in seconds. The same man they feared became the one who saved a child's life. What the world didn't know was that this moment would expose more than prejudice. It would reveal the truth about who we choose to judge and who we choose to believe. Before the headlines, before the cameras, Xavier was just another man trying to rebuild his life. Every morning, he walked through the same cracked sidewalks of his neighborhood in Atlanta, hood up, earbuds in, on his way to work at a small auto shop. The job wasn't glamorous, but it was honest. Fixing cars kept his hands busy and his mind at peace. Those tattooed hands told a story the world never cared to ask about, one of pain, loss, and survival. To his neighbors, Xavier was quiet but dependable, always the first to help when someone's car broke down or a kid's bike needed fixing. But outside his block, the world saw something different. His tattoos, the broad shoulders, the look in his eyes, they painted him as a threat in a country where judgment too often comes before truth. Still, Xavier stayed focused, determined to prove that a man's past doesn't define his future. Every paycheck went toward his mother's medical bills and his little sister's college fund. Redemption wasn't easy, but he was getting there, one long, hard day at a time. Then came the local charity event, a live community broadcast featuring local heroes. Xavier almost didn't go. Crowds weren't his thing, and cameras even less. But his boss insisted, "You've earned it, man. People should see the good you do." He didn't know that one decision, to show up, to stand in the light, would throw him into a moment that would test everything he'd worked for. Because under those bright TV lights, when chaos erupted, Xavier wouldn't have time to think. He'd only have time to act. And in those few seconds, the man they called a thug would show the world what true courage looks like. The morning of the charity event started like any other. Hot coffee, grease-stained overalls, and the smell of motor oil clinging to Xavier's hands. His boss handed him a clean shirt with the shop's logo printed neatly across the chest. "You're representing us today, X. Let them see the man I know you are." Xavier smiled faintly, though his stomach churned. Cameras made him uneasy. He'd been judged too many times by the lens of assumption. By noon, the park was alive with energy. Kids ran between tents, food trucks filled the air with the smell of barbecue, and a local news crew set up near the main stage. The event was simple: community service awards, live performances, and recognition for people who made a difference. But Xavier wasn't used to being seen as a hero. Most days, he was invisible, unless someone needed a reason to clutch their purse or cross the street. As he stood near the stage, a young reporter approached. Her smile was polite but hesitant. "Mind if we get a few shots of your tattoos for B-roll?" she asked. Xavier nodded reluctantly, though he could feel the familiar stares burn through him. A group of parents whispered nearby, pulling their children a little closer. He caught fragments of their voices. "He's covered head to toe. Looks like trouble." The cameraman focused tightly on the ink across his arms, intricate designs honoring his late father and fallen friends. But no one asked what they meant. To them, it was a criminal's language, not a survivor's story. Then, as the mayor began his speech, the crowd's attention shifted. A sudden commotion near the far side of the stage. Screams pierced the air. A car had jumped the barricade, its driver losing control. It barreled toward the crowd where a young girl stood frozen in terror, her mother shouting her name. Instinct took over. Xavier didn't think, he moved. Sprinting across the grass, he lunged forward just as the car skidded into the curb. He grabbed the child, rolling them both to safety seconds before the vehicle crashed into the sound equipment. The impact echoed through the park like an explosion. Silence followed, Then chaos. Camera flashes erupted. People screamed. The mother sobbed, clutching her daughter. And there was Xavier, kneeling in the dust, his shirt torn, tattoos glistening with sweat and dirt. The crowd stared, not in gratitude, but confusion. He wasn't supposed to be the hero. He didn't look like one. The news cameras caught everything. The dive, the rescue, the moment he held the crying girl in his arms. But within minutes, that same footage began to twist online. Tattooed man attacks child before car crash. One headline read. Another claimed, former convict involved in incident at charity event. The still frame, his arms around the girl, was enough to ignite outrage from people who never saw the full video. By nightfall, Xavier's name trended nationwide, not for bravery, but for suspicion. Reporters camped outside his job, police demanded statements, and social media tore him apart. "Thug in disguise," one comment read. Probably staged it for fame. Xavier sat in his small apartment, phone buzzing non-stop, the weight of the world pressing on his chest. He had saved a life, but somehow he was the villain. The same tattoos that told his story now painted him as a monster. He didn't know it yet, but the real battle hadn't even begun. Because by morning, the video that should have made him a hero would become the weapon used to destroy his reputation and test every ounce of strength he had left. By sunrise, Xavier's life had become unrecognizable. News vans lined his block, reporters shouting questions through his window. The same faces that once praised his bravery now demanded explanations. Why was he even there? Was the rescue staged? The headlines twisted everything. Each photo focused on his tattoos, never the child he saved. Every post labeled him aggressive, dangerous, a thug pretending to be a hero. Then came the knock. 2 officers stood at his door, stone-faced. "We need you to come with us for questioning." The tone wasn't friendly. It was accusatory. Cameras followed as they escorted him out in handcuffs. His neighbors watched in silence. A man who had saved a life was now paraded like a criminal. At the precinct, Xavier sat beneath harsh, fluorescent lights. The detective slid photos across the table, screenshots of his tattoos, grainy images from the charity event, headlines questioning his motives. "You've got quite the record," the detective said, smirking. "People like you don't just show up at public events without a reason." He wanted to speak, to defend himself, but every word felt useless. The system wasn't built to listen to men like him. It was built to define them before they spoke. Hours turned into night. Reporters replayed the same clips, cutting out the moment he pulled the child to safety. Now, it looked like an attack. Xavier's phone buzzed once, a message from his boss. "We have to let you go." Too much attention. That broke him. Not the arrest, not the headlines, the betrayal of those who once believed in him. Then came the video that changed everything. A full recording surfaced from a bystander's phone showing the entire rescue, the screeching tires, the mother's scream, Xavier diving to save the girl. Within minutes, the truth spread like wildfire. The same media that tore him apart now scrambled to reverse their narrative. But it was too late. His name was already tarnished, his job gone, his trust in people shattered. As he walked out of the station, free but broken, the same cameras flashed once more. A reporter shouted, "Xavier, any words for the people who called you a thug?" He paused, looking directly into the lens. Maybe now they'll see what a real hero looks like. The truth finally came out, but the damage had already been done. Xavier was cleared of all accusations, the full video shown on every news channel. Commentators called it a misunderstanding, as if the weeks of humiliation, threats, and lost dignity could be erased by a single headline. The mayor issued an apology. The police dropped the charges, and the same media outlets that destroyed his name now called him a hero. But Xavier didn't feel like one. He walked through the same streets, yet everything felt different. People looked at him now with admiration. But beneath their smiles, he could still see the same fear that had once condemned him. Redemption, he realized, doesn't erase the pain. It just exposes the truth that should have been seen all along. The little girl he saved visited him months later with her mother. She hugged him tightly, whispering, "You're my hero." For the first time in months, he smiled, because that one voice, pure and honest, meant more than all the noise the world had thrown his way. He used his newfound attention not for fame, but for purpose. Xavier began speaking at schools, telling kids who looked like him that their worth isn't defined by the stereotypes painted on their skin. His story became a symbol of resilience, a reminder that prejudice doesn't need proof, only perception. Across social media, people began sharing their own stories of being judged by appearances, tattoos, skin color, accent, past mistakes. The phrase, "see beyond the skin," spread faster than anyone expected. It wasn't just about Xavier anymore. It was about everyone who'd ever been labeled before being understood. And maybe that's what this story was really about. How one man's act of courage revealed not just the hero he was, but the bias that blinds us all. So next time you see someone who doesn't look like what you expect, ask yourself, are you seeing the person they are, or the stereotype you've been taught to believe? Because sometimes the real heroes are the ones the world is too afraid to look at twice. Don't miss more powerful real-life stories. Hit subscribe now.